So this is a colony. There are direct colonies like Iraq or Israel, where you have a state that occupies and exists there, and you have military bases that then periodically shake down the local population. But then you have informal colonies, like Mexico, right? How many American troops are stationed in Mexico? Very few, and most of them are there covertly. But they don't need to station them there, right? They issue loans, they issue trade through NAFTA, they buy up all of, the factories, they build all the factories, they buy up all the food, they buy up all the raw materials, and then, at the end of the day, they don't need the soldiers, right? They can just use the Mexican soldiers to imperialize the Mexicans, because all of our oppression of Mexico is done on paper, through banks, through loans. So Mexico is demonstrably a colony of the United States, and yet no American has to gun down a Mexican in the street. No American has to take communally held land from indigenous people, because you can have a colony, and in fact most of our current colonies are done through the paper trail, through the banks. So again, you don't need to have an occupation. You can just issue loans. And as a matter of fact, if someone doesn't want to play ball, just don't issue them any loans. And don't let any of your raw materials go to them, and don't do any production for them, and don't let them use your transport, and very quickly they will be starved out and they will die. Sometimes figuratively, and sometimes literally. So this brings us to imperialism proper, right, as the highest stage of capitalism. And Lenin does quite a good job of it. Of imperialism, he says, imperialism, or the domination of finance capital, is the highest stage of capitalism, in which this separation reaches vast proportions. The supremacy of finance capital over all other forms of capital means the predominance of the retainer and the financial oligarchy, retainer being money issued vis-a-vis a loan of something of that variety. It means that a number of financially, quote, powerful states stand out among all the rest. So again, it's not that we have, as Americans, forgotten the real economy in favor of our imaginary economy, but that the imaginary economy of banking and financial institutions is the real economy. And if you don't believe that, just look at default credit swaps, a crazy form of loan/insurance that produces nothing, that promises to produce nothing, is enough to bring our economy to a screeching halt, rather. So how does imperialism operate? It's a struggle to control capital that may remain hidden or open. It may take the form of shock and awe, or it may take the form of the World Trade Organization and IMF's structural readjustments. You should simply because you don't see soldiers with guns does not mean that imperialism is not taking place. And sometimes it's well, I don't want to say perfectly hidden, but quite well hidden. Look at Haiti and Aristide, right? He was a democratically elected leader, and through these noble humanitarians who were ex-soldiers, they invaded the country and toppled the regime. And they were so popular with the people that I believe it's Jean-Philippe, when he ran for president in this most recent election, he managed to get a whopping 1.7% of the vote. So again, even if, but who was behind that? As a matter of fact, it was the United States and the Bush administration. There was connections all the way through to the CIA and the State Department. If this sounds like a crazy conspiracy theory, there's one that is indubitable. Chile. These radical revolutionaries for free capitalism and liberty murdered the democratically elected leader of Chile, and they did so with CIA backing, both material, logistical, and informational, and support of the Chicago School of Economics. So again, it can be open or hidden. Also, it's the struggle to control resources by others that entails other nations to compete for resources in order to stay in the game. If everyone is engaged in imperialism, and your country takes the moral high ground and does not imperialize, on the world market, you will fall behind. There's a very good example of this. Notice the richest countries in the world. The richest countries in the world are the countries that practiced successfully imperialism. Western Europe carved up all of Africa and most of Asia. The United States carved up all of the Americas, the Monroe Doctrine, in case any of you have forgotten. And Japan historically practiced spheres of influence and imperialism all over China, Korea, and various Asian countries. So again, imperialism is itself a self-motivating force. Because if you don't engage in it, you will fall behind all of the countries that imperialize. So, we also have, and this is another key fact that we're going to see in Haiti. We've seen it in Afghanistan, we've seen it in Iraq, we've seen it in Panama, we've seen it everywhere that the capitalists practice imperialism. And this needs to be clear. Imperialism is never humanitarian. It doesn't matter what disguise it takes. Imperialists are never bringing civilization and enlightenment. They are always interested in corporate profits. Look at Africa, right? White man's burden was the name that imperialism in Africa went by, which is bringing civilization and humanity to Africa. Now you hear right-wing conservative or fascistic people say, why can't, Africa has had 50 years of independence. Why can't they get their act together? I mean, we brought them education, we brought them technology, we brought them civilization. No. Imperialism is never, ever, regardless of what anyone is ever saying, humanitarian. The reason why Africa is in the shape it is today is because it is constantly imperialized by Western powers. And anyone who talks to you about humanitarian capitalism, of ethical capitalism is about synonymous with ethical rape. All right? So, again, the new forms of imperialism are smarter. Microloans. Microloans to those poor, desperate people. Again, all of this should never, ever confuse us. It is not humanitarian.